Welcome to Scrappy to Scalable, the podcast where we explore human-centered AI designed to level the playing field, empowering small and mid-sized businesses to compete with the giants.
Hey, everybody. On today's podcast, I have a really young but very smart guest. His name is Jaryd Visser. He is the owner of Sedona Strategies, and this is his 7th business that he's created, and he's only 21 years old. I learned a ton from him, and I think you will too. I'm very excited to have him on the podcast. Jaryd, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. And I know it's been a while since we first had a discussion, but it's great to finally connect with you again and have this
It's been a
discussion.
few months, and you've been doing a lot of busy stuff. Tell everybody first of all, like who you are and a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur.
My name is Jaryd. I'm 21. Grew up in South Africa, so third world country. For those of you who don't know where that is, most of the viewers, or not most of the viewers in the US, but for the people that don't know where that is, it's the most southern country in Africa. That's where I grew up, in Cape Town. Very, very beautiful place. Even with all the places I've traveled to in my lifetime, still one of the best places. If you don't already have it on your travel bucket list, definitely go put it on there. It's very, very worth it.
It's absolutely it's on my list for sure. Like I've heard so many good things about Cape Town.
It's amazing, and it's the best time to escape in winter in the northern hemisphere. So whenever you get sick of the cold weather, coming down here, very, very refreshing, which is exactly what I try and do. So yeah, but anyway, grew up in Cape Town. I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 16, I believe. So this was around COVID time for me. This is 2020. So I was a big tennis player. I was planning to go play like D1 tennis at whatever college in the US. And then COVID hit and I was like, well, I can't really do anything right now. And I always was like, even from, I don't know, the age of 10, whatever, I was wheeling and dealing at school and whatever, selling whatever I could get my hands on. But I think it became more serious when I was just really bored, and I was like, why not try and look up some ways to make money online. And so the first thing I got into was direct to consumer e-commerce, right? Which I think was probably one of the 5 things that most people would get started in. And what I would do is I would basically just arbitrage products, if you could call it that, where I would just go look at what does well in first world countries, because usually third world countries are anywhere between 6 and 18 months behind whatever the trends are in first world countries. So I just go look at what did well there, and then I would import it into starting with South Africa, and then whatever other third world countries I could get into, and be one of the first to market, make as much money as I could out of it, and then rinse and repeat the process. And I did that, and just like any entrepreneur, I was kind of like finding my way, learning the different things, everything about business. And then I was really into like tech and coding at school. So then I switched into trying like a couple of things in technology, and ended up building a business in recruitment tech there with the rise of AI, because it was around the same time. And then I kind of start to like get to know what I like to do, what I was good at doing, and honing in on my skills. And then literally, like, and this is years, because I'm 21 now, starting at 16. You can imagine like 5 years of kind of trial and error and doing business. You'd learn a good amount. So by the time when I was 20, I met my previous co-founder of the company that we really started seeing success in. I met him in Cape Town. He was an American, and we hit it off. He was also a math nerd like I was. And then so we saw the whole, like, some of the other kids that were making money online and what they were doing. And we were like, okay, there's a big opportunity here, which is the thing that we saw and that we kind of capitalized on. And that's how I got my foot into this industry. Is we saw that there were people making money selling digital goods online, right? Because the margin was so high. It was pretty new, and it was, I wouldn't say went against a normal business that you would know of for the past 20, 30 years, but it was something very different. And a lot of companies were slower to adapt something like that in their company. And so whoever did, they really scooped up market. And we were like, a lot of these people don't know, like they don't have any real structural or like corporate whatever working background. They were kind of just going at it and trying to see whatever they could do to make some money. And we were like, well, we think this is a really sustainable, or this could be a really sustainable model if you approach it correctly. So what a lot of businesses at that time were doing, and one of the biggest problems in the industry was they would hit a run of a couple really good months, and they hit something that did really, really well. But then they couldn't sustain the growth of it. And so what we ended up doing is we built like simple BI tools that I'm sure a lot of people have like seen or used just in college and maybe in entry level and whatever jobs they're working. We built out a like full on tracking dashboard for sales and marketing teams to be able to just like do basic stuff like attribution and see where leads are coming from and just understand how to repeat what you did if something worked and like where not to throw your money. So something as simple as like you have two different traffic sources. One is paid ads and then you have an organic traffic source. If it's blended, you have show rates that are blended, you have cash collected that's blended. How do you know which one works? How do you know like you're not throwing money in the fire and literally burning it if you are trying to spend more money on advertising, but most of your success is actually coming from your organic traffic source, right? And so this is where a lot of people were like missing it and going wrong, and that caused the kind of burnout after this big like explosion that a lot of them saw.
So you saw a segment of the market that was not seeing the data. So it seems like
Exactly.
you're really, really data driven, and the data, you were able to separate the data into appropriate revenue sources and revenue streams. That way you can say, hey, paid ads are working really, really well and organic sucks. So let's fix the organic so they can better suit that instead of them guessing blindly. So you're able to go in there and then analyze their company, analyze their revenue streams, and then put a dashboard together and give it to the clients, right?
Exactly. And to be honest with you, the first couple months we did this, like it was nothing special that we were doing. It was just applying proven like tactics, if you call it that, from what has worked in standard companies, B2B companies that have been around forever and stuff that they've already been using, and applying it. Because what in the industry, in the digital product realm, with the rise of the creator economy and everything and people pushing out these products, it's really, really good, right? And the marketing tactics that a lot of the younger generation uses is really, really effective in generating attention. And so I think my generation and younger, so Gen Z and younger, they obviously are naturally going to be better at generating attention, but converting that attention and converting it sustainably is something that comes with you having like needing the knowledge and the skill set and a little bit of the experience to be able to make that sustainable and like kind of marry the two.
I want to dive into that a little bit more. Can you tell me, I'm definitely not Gen Z, but I have sold, like I have a real estate career, and I've sold a ton of homes,
Mm-hmm.
like $1 million plus homes on TikTok. So like I'm not a stranger to using social media to sell things, even high ticket items like a house. What are you seeing is the most effective way for marketers to get that attention on their products? Like from a Gen Z perspective, like how do you do that?
That's a great question. I guess the first thing I'll dive into is what is working now and the trend I'm seeing and like what people kind of need to be doing with the rise of AI in content. Because I'm sure you've seen there are a lot of platforms that you could use to create some really, really good AI avatars. And it's going to get to a point where it's going to be very hard to distinguish what's real and what's not, right? And so the thing that drives people to other people through content is something that cannot be replaced, and something that cannot be replaced by AI is going to be the authenticity factor of it.
I totally
So
agree.
it's like, what is your story that you have to tell that is going to make you unique? Because that is something that someone else can't really write. They don't know you. And so you are the one that needs to convey that. Even put yourself in a position to have people resonate with you. It used to be just pump out bunch of large quantity and you will kind of get something that hit and you'll be fine. But now because of that, and if people that are only getting into it right now, you need to do a combination of both. So you need to, like, a quantity is important, but quality is just as important at the moment. And the main part of that is authenticity. Is like, why? Because a lot of people feel like, I guess they're maybe not qualified to be able to post anything on there, but I can guarantee you every single person watching this, every single person in the world has their own unique story, and that is what will draw people to them.
I couldn't agree with you more. When you start to create content, like most people are not comfortable in front of a camera. But I think that is probably the most effective way to get people to like you, know you, and trust you. Because once they do that, it makes the sale portion of things so much easier because they feel like you're a friend. They know who you are because of what you bring. And if you don't bring your full true self to the content, meaning being more and more authentic,
Yeah.
then you're doing a disservice to you and your company, because people want to work with people they like and they trust. And the more authentic you can be, the easier that transition from prospect to client will happen. I totally agree with you.
Exactly. And the edge that content has over paid marketing is the fact that it's evergreen, right? And so if you make one really good piece of content, and whether it's YouTube, TikTok, whatever, it will be on your page for as long as you have that account. So in most cases, forever. And people can always go back and watch it. And when you're building your, like, I mean, we know it's not just seen in the world of people that are actual creators, but like, even if you're a normal person that is wanting to work a normal, like, quote unquote normal job, or apply for a job, whatever, your social media platform is your CV. That is what people perceive you as. That is what people like see as you, whatever you put out there, right? And so if you utilize that in your business and you really put the effort into making some really, really good and authentic piece of content, and they do well, that is like, whether it's a sales asset or a story about yourself, that is going to be there as a sales asset that are going to sell people on your behalf. So that is why people coming in from like watching you for a little while or any organic platform are so much warmer as a lead than from cold, because they've spent the time to consume information that you put out there, whether it's again, personal case study, whatever you're doing for work. So they feel like they know you. And what's like one-on-one marketing, you're not going to buy from someone that you don't know or trust. And what is your a good social presence build? It is like trust. You feel like you know the person and you trust them. So yeah, why not buy from them, you know?
So one of my questions is, and I struggle a little bit with this on the real estate business that I own, is the conversion part of things. I've been fortunate to have a lot of those conversions, but I always want more. What are you seeing is like the most effective way to go from content to actually converting them to becoming a client?
I think the first step is to be able to just track what you're doing, because if you're not seeing what you're doing and the cause and effect of whatever you change in a conversion funnel or wherever you're sending them to, you're not going to know what you should do more of or what you do less of. And this comes back to the whole thing of like how I got into the industry and the gap that we saw, but it's still relevant now and will forever be. So if you want to increase the conversion side of it, you need to understand the metrics behind it, like broken up into where did you, I'm going to use your page as an example. So where would you send people from, like your Instagram or TikTok or whatever, to go and like, you have a portfolio, like a website page or what?
So I typically do like property tours, and I would have a dedicated page for that specific property. And it's like, hey, check out the link in my bio. It'll go to this page. You'll get all the information there. And that's where I think is where I'm struggling a little bit, is that conversion in that actual web page. There's not a ton of like lead capture form. There is one lead capture form, but there's not a huge way to convert them from that site. So I'm trying to figure out that balance of doing that.
Yeah. So let me start by going back to the content side of it. So one, I think it's important for everyone that utilizes content in their business to have different buyer stages represented in their content. So top of funnel content, you have to put out there to get more attention, like top of funnel attention. You need to put some more
Right.
middle of funnel content out there. Then you need to put some more bottom of funnel content out there and mix it in between. So people naturally go through that stage from unaware to like completely solution aware, and they're just ready to buy whatever you put in front of them, right? Then they're naturally going to convert. But now you don't do that perfectly, going to the next stage. So they're like, you generate, because the point of any content or any CTA or any like any ad that you make is to generate enough attention for them to take the next step. And so in the overall funnel, right, you need to, again, be able to segment them and say, okay, this is one stage that people are in. So how many people visit your page, for example? Then how many people visit your landing page? Then how many people fill out an application form? Then how many people actually like go and book a tour with you, right? So once you see all those numbers, you're going to immediately see where is the biggest drop off. And then wherever the biggest drop off is, you are going to go ahead and see, okay, how do I fix this?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's about, okay, what are the things that I can test on it? So for example, if it's like you see a big drop off between people, that you get a lot of people viewing your page, a lot of people clicking your page, but not a lot of people filling it out. So that means there's something on your page that people are not resonating with, or it's not congruent. So maybe what you say in your content is not congruent to what they see on the page that they're visiting. So it's like if you're making content about selling $1 million homes, and then they click on your page, and then it's like a bunch of examples of you selling like $50,000 plots of land, it's not congruent to what you're posting, right? So that's really, really important to then be able to go in and number one, diagnose where the problem is, and then two, just test things to be able to fix it, right? Because no one, and this is also the approach that I take in any company that I walk into, because obviously the age thing, people are like, well, why the hell should I trust you to do anything? It's like, well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know exactly what to do, but I know the process to be able to understand how to test something to get it in KPI, so that where you're growing you're achieving really good growth for the company. And so like, don't listen to me, listen to the numbers. I know how to set up the infrastructure to listen to the numbers.
When you're evaluating new clients for your company, Sedona Strategy, how do you evaluate them? How do you take on new clients? What is your process to take on new clients? And do you walk away from clients? You're like, yeah, you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to walk away. What does that look like for you and your company?
Yes, definitely. There's a very strict, if I could call it that, process of how we or due diligence rather, that we go through before partnering with someone. Because we have had, just like anyone in, like, you have bad experiences with clients, right? And things that you definitely want to avoid. And because of the nature of what we do, and we are very intentional and specific, we're a boutique company, right? With really good margin. And in terms of, I guess I'll tie back in a second. The way that I looked at growth when I started this company is like, or there's two ways to grow. Either we're going to go grow in terms of width and taking on more and more clients and hiring more and more people, or just go very deep in a handful of clients that we have. So choosing going a lot deeper, you have a leaner team and you could make more per client, but that means you have to pick your client even better, and you can't have clients that are slacking or this or that, as opposed to going down kind of the other route where you have more volume, and if someone's not performing as well, it's fine because you have someone else to make up with it. The route we're going is very, very, very deep and very intentional, and just very, very all in on growing the clients that we have. So when looking at prospects that we'd want to like sign on as a client, it's really, I guess it's a little bit of an art to position yourself as the client wants to be signed by you, instead of you are trying to push to get the client. And so I guess it comes down to, if you're really good at what you do, then naturally it will happen easier for you. But definitely someone that or a company culture that we can resonate with and we would enjoy working with.
Well, before you go on there, I guess I should have asked you this beforehand, but what is your business structure actually look like in terms of your business plan and your business model? Because I didn't understand exactly what Sedona Strategy does. So tell me a little bit about your business model first, and then you can continue on with the rest of that.
For sure. So pretty straightforward model. We have two main ways that we generate revenue. One is consulting on sales, marketing, and strategy. So just kind of the overall growth of a company in different realms, because we have different types of expertise in the company for different things. And two is the partnership / publishing model. So initially we ran it more as we'll come on and it's kind of like a performance structure where it's like we take a percentage of whatever we generate low risk to them. And we have our team that we come in with, we take over sales marketing under our supervision, and then a little bit of strategy on maybe the product side. And then we utilize the company's resources to be able to effectively grow the company. And then we just get paid based on how well we do for the company. And then the publishing model is kind of the same, but now you're more going into a joint, like a JV with the other partner. So our company would be the back end ops, fulfillment, sales, marketing, strategy, whatever. And then you would have your partner more be the expertise of whatever the product is that you're selling, and the face, because they're the one with the expertise. But at the end of the day, I think marketing is such a valuable skill. If you're good at marketing, I can sit here and come up with any product that I would want to sell, maybe an ebook, and I could go faceless. And if my copy is good enough and I do my research well enough and it speaks to a pain point that a certain market segment has, I will make money out of it. And that's just the nature of business.
I definitely want to dive more into that. So it makes more sense now why, if you're going to do a joint venture, you're going to have to really scrutinize the company a lot more, because it's going to take a lot more resources to do that, right? In terms of the resources that you do have, AI is changing so quickly, and there's so many new products coming on the market every single day. How are you using AI to help facilitate some of the deliverables that you're doing in terms of the content creation, in terms of copy, in terms of analytics? Are you using specific tools to help you speed up that process to make it a little bit more efficient?
100%. Pretty much every aspect of the company, we use AI right now. So on the sales side of it, it is more for automating feedback. So it is like we will have. I'm just going to use a GPT model as an example, because it's one that most people are familiar with, right? So you have an agent or a model from GPT that you train to be really good, like at analyzing sales. And then you would take the transcript of the call recording, feed it through there, and then it will give you some feedback as to what it is. And then it will store it in a database for you to be able to then later pull when you're doing your reviews on maybe the week or the month or whatever of the people that have bought from you, why they bought, etc., what type of buyer they were. So on the sales side, it's more, because it's still the most people-driven one. It's more just quicker feedback loop to be able to analyze it really, really quickly.
Now, is that in terms of a digital product that you're selling, or is this actually a sales call that your sales agents are closing?
Yeah, sales calls.
So you're analyzing the actual sales call and analyzing like how many times they closed. Did they handle objections properly? Did they ask for another close? Did they ask for another appointment? Things like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because if you're doing high volumes and like, let's say you have a mid-sized team and you're scaling a product up really quickly and you're taking like across different reps 25 to 35 calls a day, there's way too much data for you to be able to effectively digest. So now what we're doing with AI, it's really a trend spotting mechanism that we use it for. So it's like, okay, in the past week, in these calls, and this also then comes down to like how good the person is at asking questions, because that is the person that's going to get the most out of the information, right? But we would use it as a transporting tool to say like, all right, what are the 5 biggest trends that you've picked up across this week compared to previous? Let's say the show rate is down, close rate is down. Why do you think that the close rate is down? Have the sales reps maybe been pitching the product too early? So like what timestamp on average have sales reps been pitching the product compared to previous week where the close rate was really high, right? Stuff like that. And now when you have, it's really effective when you have a database of clean data, and any agent, it does not really matter. Like some models are better than others, yes, but when you have an agent trained on the information of like the company and then kind of the brain of what a good sales rep or sales manager would look at. Then you're golden. Then you can just start like really digging into it and asking questions. What do you see here, there? So it's really, really, really useful.
My co-founder right now is like salivating in the background because it's all data and spreadsheets. And so I know that he's going to love that. So you take your GPT agent and then you parse that data. So you have the transcript, you have like, okay, at this timestamp, he did this information and he closed this time and he didn't close that. And then you can analyze all of that and then put it in a spreadsheet. Are you putting that into some kind of RAG database that you're querying the data? Is that how you're doing that?
So BigQuery, Google BigQuery, which is like Google's just database to store data just for volume. You could do it in Sheets if you really wanted to in the beginning to test it out, but it's just not as stable and it's not great for scalability. But any big database will work. So we just use BigQuery because we for the BI we used a lot of Looker. So it's kind of something that the team's familiar with, and it works. It's just great for scale. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward in terms of tools. The most important part is understanding how, or making sure that your data is clean before feeding it in, and making sure you have an effective model trained to be able to analyze it and give you the right information that you're looking for.
Is that a proprietary software that you guys have created, to analyze sales calls, or is there off the shelf stuff that's a random small business can incorporate?
Off the shelf stuff, like I'm not the one that is like, we have a person in the company that is like kind of in charge of looking for all these things. But to my knowledge, there's not something. I'm sure you could find something if you really dig for it. Because there's something for every use case at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's so quick to spin up. But you could go and build it yourself if you want to. And that's what, I mean, most of my friends' companies that they're running, our company that we're running, instead of paying for something, we just build it ourselves. Because it's so easy to do it now, whether you have some dev or tech background or not. Citizen developers or like everyday people that can go ahead and use a Bolt.new or whatever platform to just go and type natural language and spin up a software based on what you're like brain dumping what you want it to do from your expertise in sales or marketing background. You can make something that works, and a lot of companies are just making their own proprietary or in-house software for any of these use cases, even if there was something out there.
I mean, that's the way that things are heading, is that, hey, we don't have something that does what we're going to do. So we're going to just speak in plain English to Claude Code or whatever app that's coming out lately and say, this is what we want, build it. And I think that to me is the most amazing part about AI, is it just makes it so much more accessible for people who don't have a highly technical background. And I think that is exciting to see, but it's just changing so fast. So how are you keeping up? You have somebody in your company that's doing that, but yeah, how do you keep up with the technology?
You would go crazy if you had to sit there every day and like think that you're working on building something, and then the next day you're like, oh well, you just read somewhere on Twitter, this thing just came out to replace whatever you're doing, or it's like, oh, there's a newer model on this, because that's what a lot of people were doing, is just in terms of the base AI is like jumping between a Gemini and a ChatGPT and a Llama model or whatever based on the new ones that were coming out, because then this one's better and then that one's better. So you are going to literally, like, it is near impossible to be able to keep up with it all the time. If you find something that is good and useful and that it does the job that you're looking to do effectively, then you just keep using it. Unless you're like, okay, I think there's a lot of gaps in here, go find something better. I think in marketing and copywriting, you're constantly like looking for new models that are better at copywriting than others. But there's a lot of things that you could just, if it works and it does the thing that you want it to do, then you just keep using it. You're going to waste more time trying to try out the new thing that you don't know is going to work. Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen, what is it? The company Claudebot that everyone's
Open
like
Claude?
going crazy. OpenClaw, yeah. OpenClaw that everyone's going crazy for now, that they just got acquired by OpenAI, I'm pretty sure. But everyone was like, going out buying a Mac Mini to try and run this thing and like see what they can do for it. But it's like, okay, you're spending 3, 4, whatever days just focus on this. Yes, it is going to be something that is going to be very integrated in what like all businesses are going to be using. But is it something that is going to be moving the needle for you right now? If it is, then yeah, go do it. If not, then just no point in doing that, because you're going to be wasting more time.
Totally. One of the things that I think is fundamental to what you're talking about, though, is numbers don't lie. So
Yeah.
if the data and the numbers that you are seeing, that is going to tell you the story. And I think that for me, as a non-analytical data person, like I'm more like big picture sales kind of guy, but having that structure and the data to tell you the actual story is the difference between like calculated growth versus like, well, it worked this month, but we're not sure what happened. So we're going to throw everything to the wall and see what sticks. You know, the numbers tell the story. And I think that's a really smart approach. No matter what kind of tool you're using, it's about the numbers, the data, right?
Yeah. And I think it's also important here to mention that for people that might be thinking, yeah, but there are exceptions to the rule where you might go on experience or gut feeling or whatever. Yes, but just like anything statistically, it's like if you have a 99% chance using the numbers to be right, why would you not do that? Or why would you not take the safer bet, especially when you're growing something as important and just like volatile and everything is as a company that you're growing, right? So there's a general rule, yes, like that is what you should use, and you'll be right more than you will be wrong if you utilize that in your decision making and think that way.
Yeah. So how do you plan on growing Sedona strategy in the future? Like what is your growth track and what is your plans to continue to grow?
So to be honest, I'll give you a company growth strategy for the company itself, and then my personal growth strategy. So for the company, we're eventually going to have to go, if we really want to just grow bigger and bigger, take on more people, get more A players and take on more clients. And just, if you really want to be the best, work with some of the best, most influential people in the world and be their operators in things like selling whatever it is that they are pushing on the front ends. If you think about like distribution is the most important thing, at least in my view right now in business. You can have a bad product. If you have good distribution and good marketing, you can do really well. If you have a good product with good distribution, you will crush the market, because there are a lot of good products out there with terrible distribution, and there are a lot of bad products with good distribution, and a bad product with good distribution will beat out a good product with no distribution every day of the week, because how are you supposed to get the thing off the ground if no one is using it, or no one's seeing it, or no one's buying whatever you're selling?
And when you say distribution, you're talking about eyeballs on your product.
Exactly.
Are you doing a mixture of paid and organic? Like what's your thing that you are leaning on most when you're talking about distribution?
Like if you look at companies in majority tech, right? They don't really have a brand face. They have, well, a lot of them are starting to pay like creators or influencers to talk about the company, because they know how powerful it is. Paid ads, you could go really, really far with. Again, if you're good at marketing, then you can go a really long way with paid ads, because it's like a predictable form of income. Is if you know you're going to put $1,000 in and you can get $4,000 out, you're just going to keep rinsing it, the process, and upping the spend and upping and upping until something breaks or you need to improve something. To answer your question in short, yes, we use both, but it's a very hard thing to be able to manage, because if you make the product so tied to the person, then you have key man risk and you can't sell it, right? Because the product is the person, the person's the product. So you want to focus on making sure that your business is able to grow without there being a specific person, like without having any key man risk in the company, whether it's the CEO or the brand face or whatever. But for sure, especially in the beginning, it does, like organic does help, and it could be the difference between your product taking off versus no.
Like a lot of the consultants that we're working with, they are the company. They are the consultant. They're the one doing the work. How do you continue to grow the company without having that key person being the face of it and continue to grow? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a really tricky balance, and I haven't figured that out. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Consulting is difficult because it's always it's a pull, not a push. It's like it's very hard to like push consulting onto people. Number one, and number two, at the end of the day, is like you have to build a brand around the values that make you so good at consulting, and push the brand name out there more than you. So it's not like, hey, this is so and so. Like I'm the one consulting. This is the firm. This is because anyone who's really good at whatever niche they're consulting in, you are able to extract that knowledge and like teach someone else to do it as well. So you can instill the expertise in a company form. So I think in order to be able to do that effectively, you need to take a step back and work on the company, not in the company.
That makes a ton of sense. Like you're selling the values of the company and why the values work so well. So you always approach it from a brand standpoint, not just it's me. No, this is our philosophy. This is our values. This is our mission. And you brand it that way, not just I'm the only person that has these values. No one else does. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a hard balance because it's very tempting and it's a lot easier to just grow it initially and make more money out of you pushing it yourself and as your own name, especially if you already have credibility, as opposed to putting the effort in to grow the brand of it. But think about like why people go. I mean, McKinsey's not a person. People go to McKinsey's brand equity is there. Like the time is no one like. Who knows who the founder of McKinsey is? I mean, a lot of people happen to just be the names of whoever started it. But what I'm saying is, if you start a company, you don't want someone eventually. The company's really sustainable when someone knows the company name and not the name of the guy who started it.
Right. Like Elon Musk, you can't separate him from everything that he creates because it's so him.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for his companies, he probably won't ever stop working. But if you're someone that wants to eventually sell it, like it does play a role in the evaluation of the company and how much you can sell it for, and like you having to stay on in the company maybe longer. So in Elon's case, it's not like he doesn't really care about ever selling the company. His goal is to like go to Mars or like, so it's very different, and the money and everything is a byproduct of that. But for most people, you want to focus on building the brand and the infrastructure
to be able to sell it without having to be in the business. That's a very, very good point. That's really smart. I didn't think of it from that point, even from our Caldor Dynamics aspect and from my real estate aspect. Like I am the guy who's going to buy and sell your home.
Yeah, but that's fine as well. It's like it's not necessarily a bad thing because you are, when you start a business, you need to think, all right, this thing is either going to be scalable or sellable or both, right? Both is the ideal, but it's usually something that's only scalable, you can make quick cash from, and something that is only sellable, you can, like a tech company, or scalable and sellable. If you bring the scalable or sellable element into it, it's going to take longer for you to be able to see some success out of it, usually, right? Because the only scalable, like real estate, you can go out tomorrow. If you have your license, go sell a home, you make money, right? And it's good cash flow, or good cash, but you're not gonna sell it. There's no like equity to it unless you start a firm or whatever, right? But it's fine. So like, for example, when we started, it was also just, we started it initially for the purpose of having a really high margin, good cash flow business to be able to invest and do some VC plays and then like exit for a good amount of money and have someone else build a company while we sit with the cash flow, have them exit it, and you just take a piece of the pie for having the cash flow. And I think a lot of people underestimate. They're like, oh, if it's not sellable, it's not worth it to do it. No, a lot of times it is, because if you can is like having really good cash flow is the most important thing, right, for a business. And if you have cash, it's also one of the most like leveraged things that you can have to be able to do anything with it, right? So if you spend a year focusing on doing something that is really really scalable really quickly, you know you're not going to sell that, but you cash grab the hell out of that company, and you can then deploy that cash into whatever else you want to do to grow. You're in a better place than someone who's like, at that time at least, and then someone who's started a tech company thinking I'm going to sell this for like 100 million in 20 years, maybe potentially, right? So it's undervalued, underestimated for sure. People going into something that is really scalable, not necessarily sellable. But the problem is a lot of people don't deploy the one into the other. So like a consultant, you're going to keep in the hamster wheel if you're the one running the company, but your margin is really good because you're the only one taking money from the company because you are the company. But what are you doing with that money, right? Is it like, are you going to make that money work for you and invest it into something that's sellable eventually and that you can fully never have to work? Or are you just going to keep making the money, spending the money, and then that's what is going to be your destiny for the rest of your life, unfortunately?
Yeah. Yeah. You're a very smart guy. I'm really glad that we're finally able to make this podcast happen.
No,
So if
me too,
somebody
appreciate
wants,
it.
yeah, of course. So if somebody does want to work with you and they want to help increase their sales and marketing and their systems behind their sales, how would they get a hold of you, and how would they work with you?
Either through my personal LinkedIn, or we have a company page which should be up again by the time that this goes live. It's just sedonastrategy.io. Go on the company page, there's an application, so it's like very, very, very straightforward. A little bit about what we do, some of the companies that we've worked with, and then an application form, and then we'll reach out to you and see if it would be a good fit. But yeah, it genuinely, I would love to work with any and every company, and the more challenging the company, the better. Like there was a digital product in Australia that we took on, and this was more of a little bit of a more personal and decision for me, just because I wanted to see that we could actually do it. So this company was in debt, and selling a digital product in the Australian market for people wanting to start their own like company using the skills that they had like in their job, but they obviously didn't want to do a job there, but how to turn their existing skills into a business, right? And how to sell that. And they were in debt, and in a month and a half we turned it from debt to doing gross I think $75,000 dollars in
Wow.
in a 30-day period.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what was your strategy behind that?
I mean, we stripped the whole offer down, and because everything was just like, to be honest with you, everything was terrible in that company. We stripped everything down. We rewrote what we like to do in every company is write a argumentative essay, which we call a sales letter, a written sales letter based on the market research that we do on the product and where it's going, and the target market that we want to go after. We do a very, very deep dive into the research, understanding the ICP, and then we write an argumentative essay, all of the reasons why people should buy, why people need the product, and then why people should buy from us. And then a breakdown of like, obviously the product, like the packaging of everything and the pricing of it, and how to capitalize on every part of the market. Because, most people, if you're selling a higher ticket product, then most of the market is not going to be able to afford it, no matter where you go or who you sell to. If you want to go do this at scale, right? Obviously, if you sell multi-million-dollar homes to millionaires, billionaires, different story. As a general rule, a lot of the market is not, if you sell a high ticket product to a broader market, most people are not going to be able to afford it. So you need to understand how to capitalize on the people that won't be able to afford it. I'll give you, and this is like a real strategy that we implemented in a company that like really, really worked. So if you are a company that sells to an audience and this is usually an older audience, that has the money to buy or invest in something, but they are a little bit skeptical about it, and they kind of need to see a taste of like the product
The end
or
result.
service, whatever you're selling it, right? You can create a very, very low ticket, very low friction offer with a very, very high and quick time to value to give them the taste of that, and then have a sales process to ascend them from purchase of this low ticket, and making sure their product experience is like 100 out of 10 in the first couple of days from purchasing. Let's take a fitness offer, for example, and I know a fitness offer, they do like a couple million a month. By doing this, you can't even buy something that's high ticket without purchasing something that's low ticket. So they sell to usually older women, They have the money, but they're a little bit skeptical and like, is this going to work? Right. So you sell something that's maybe $27 to them and you get a week's fitness program. And the first week you have someone checking up on them. You give them an accountability sheet. They just like get a ridiculously, overwhelmingly good product experience for $27. So like, so if I get this for this price, what am I going to, like, if I do spend this $6,000, whatever, what am I going to get for that? And then obviously it's easier to convert a existing client than it is just a lead, because now they've already taken the leap and spent money with you. And if they have a disproportionately good customer experience, then the likelihood of them sending is really, really good. And that's where a lot of companies fall off the bus, is like their fulfillment is really bad and the time to value is really bad. And that's why people churn. That is literally why people churn. It's because they don't get what they expect out of the product and they don't get it quick enough.
Yeah, they want it fast and quickly.
Exactly.
If they get the result, then they're willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Jaryd, I really appreciate your time. You're a really smart guy. I'm sure we'll see a lot more of you in the future. And come back on the podcast after you get some even more growth. I'd love to hear how your journey's been and all the new things you're learning. Because I learned a lot from you. So thank you.
For sure. No, I appreciate it. Definitely. We'll do this again in a couple months and dive into some more topics. I know there are a lot of things that we could have spoke about in either more depth or different topics that we could have spoken about, but obviously there's not time for everything. But yeah, it was great conversation. I hope it was a decently informative one.
I learned a lot. So I really do appreciate it. And best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.